Hello, I'm Jane Schmatzer, Director of Adult Ministries here at Christ to All, and I am coming to you today in the Loved and Sent webinar with our special guest, Christie Eberly. Christie is one of the key volunteers that has worked with Christ Memorial since the very beginning. Of doing Loved and Sent community servant events. And so Christie's got the scoop on everything that you could want to know. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll get to them later. But for right now, I want to introduce to you Christie Eberly. Would you say hi, Christie?
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for joining us. Christie is kind of what I think most church pastors would refer to as the super volunteer. For the first 7 years of doing Loved and Sent servant events, she worked a full-time position. She was a full-time human resources manager for a local company, and served on the committee that put together all of the details around that one-day servant event. And for the last 3 years, she has continued in that role, but she's done that as a member of the retired community. So she's got a little bit more time to give. So she doesn't just do all of that for Loved and Sent, but she also volunteers in a lot of other ways at the church. Definitely a super volunteer. And we're so excited that she carved out some time today to join us. So one of the things that I thought was really great, you weren't with us last month, Christie, but we talked with Pastor Paul from your church, and he said that the secret sauce for Loved and Sent, in his opinion, is the local servant event. In fact, I wrote down exactly what he said so I wouldn't misquote him. But he said, it's the time that everything becomes real and people begin to move out of the church and into the community. And so I just want to pause for a second there, because I think that that's really significant, where everything comes together. You've been reading the book Loved and Sent, you've been talking about that in small groups, but on this day, all of that becomes faith in action. And so everybody gets a chance to pick, I think, what they wanted to do. And then they move out and they actually serve and share God's love in the community. So I just want to pause right there, because that's really where you and your committee picked up that very first year. And I know that things have ebbed and flowed and grown and changed over the last 10 years. But if, as much as possible, take us back to that first year, because that's where a lot of our viewers are right now, is that they're planning their very first servant event. So give us a sense of the entirety of what your committee was considering when they sat down to plan this very first event.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to join you. Loved and Sent is a wonderful opportunity to go out into the community. When we started this 10 years ago, Pastor Jeff came to us and said, be creative. What can you do and what can we do for the community that can include our whole congregation? We're a very large congregation. We have all ages. And our goal was to try to include everybody, opportunities and bring everybody in. We got together as a community, as a committee group, and we started writing down opportunities. But then we also had to look at what kind of opportunities were there out there. There are so many organizations out there, and it was our group that would reach out to other people within our church and say, hey, haven't you volunteered at food outreach? Or have you volunteered to go sing at a retirement home. How does that work? So it's getting feedback from our congregation, but at the same time, we had to think through and accommodate all ages. There were people that can't go out and do hard labor, but we didn't want to exclude them. They need to be included in this opportunity because they want to be. We just had to think through what opportunities there were. Example, making fleece blankets. We did it at church. Do you have the space for it at church? Did we have the space for it at church accommodated? Depending upon the size, you may not have a lot of space for a lot of projects there. So maybe you reach out to other areas to see if they are willing to open their doors and do a project. It can be a conference center. It can be another church. It can be the library. See if they are willing to open their doors and volunteer a space. And sometimes you're going to find that they're not going to charge you for it. It's an opportunity for reach out to them and say, we want to help. This is how we want to help. Volunteering and going out and being love sent means so many different things to us. And that is reaching out to other organizations, reaching out to Lowe's, Home Depot, and asking them to help us out in whatever way we decide. The biggest thing at the beginning was just determining how many projects do we need to accommodate all ages and the size of our church. That is the very first step you have to take. We're a large church. We started out with 35 projects, 35 opportunities spreading all over the community. It's a lot, it's research. But if you can reach out to maybe people that have been volunteering there, you don't know, and that is putting information out, maybe your church newsletter saying, hey, have any of you volunteered anywhere? What does it consist of? Would you be willing to give us information or even help us lead a group? It's reaching out. You're not expected to find every single project. It's reaching out to your church community and asking them for their help. And when you do that, there's a self-importance there. They feel as if they're giving to a big opportunity of being loved and sent. That was the very starting point. The next thing is the money involved for whatever you're going to do. I'll give you a couple examples. For one of the organizations, we built some privacy fences around some apartments that this organization has. Well, that costs some money. So it's reaching out to Lowe's, Home Depot, and asking them if they can donate lumber, whatever is needed for building those fences. And it was pretty successful. And sometimes the organization that you're doing this for may have some of those supplies. They just didn't have the people to do it. Now that's a laborious job. So it's getting out in the community. It makes a difference to reach out to organizations that are willing to help out in some way. The second thing, canned food drives. We are doing a canned food drive this year, October 7th, for Love Sent Serve event. It's going to 3. We picked 3 organizations. We haven't done a food drive for quite some time. So what we did is we do canned food drives. We can start it as early as August. And we just start collecting food. And we give out lists of what's needed. And we collect it. Make sure you have the storage space. If you do not, find somebody that can store it at their house. I'm storing some of it in my garage to help out. There's collections. There is what we use called Thrivent Financial Action Team dollars. This is a financial company that people go to when they need just financial help. They want to know how to save the money, how to live comfortably. They're looking to the future. If you become a member of Thrivent twice a year, doesn't matter when you do it, you can apply for action team dollars. And there's an application process just going into the website for $250 each time. That's what you're given as a member of Thrivent Action, Thrivent Financial. That has been a big help to us. We used the Thrivent Action Team dollars for sending a group of people that said, I can't be there the day of, but let me shop. I can get action team dollars. Let me shop for some canned goods and I'll bring it to you. So we asked 3 or 4 people to go out. We gave them our cards. When you submitted it, you get a gift card and you can take it and buy it, $250 worth. That helps out too, along with the collections you take. Another step in for collecting canned goods is the day of our event, October 7th. We're asking everybody that is signed up for whatever event they're doing, the day that they come to church for the big send-off to head out to their project, bring canned goods. So it's just juggle around trying to find the best ways to collect what you need. If you're doing an outdoor project, most likely you probably may have to ask people to bring tools that they may have. Finding people within your congregation that may have a trailer to haul stuff that you need to pick up. It's just reaching out to your community and at your community at your church and asking for help. So those are the 2 steps. The third step, we are
hold on, before you go to the third step, I just want to break in for a second and clarify a couple of things. This is all great information, so thank you so much for thinking about that. But I want to go back to the idea of all ages. So you gave some examples of doing projects for adults that wouldn't require a lot of mobility. What about kids? How young do you have projects for?
We've gone as young as 5 years old.
Wow. So tell me, what do they do?
Art. So we have a lady that is a member of our church that is an art teacher for kids. And she just recently retired, but prior to that, she ran a lot of our art projects where we would, it's fall, decorate a pumpkin, take the pumpkin out to the community and drop it off at doorsteps with a Bible verse, or we're thinking of you. Very simple things like that. You drop it off at the front doors. So sometimes it's just getting out and saying hi. You walk up and all of a sudden you hear a story from them and their garden looks terrible. And the kids take a moment and they said, you know what? We can clear out your garden. 5-year-olds can do the artwork. Easy enough. As you go up and you get into middle school, they're the ones that can go with their parents. And these are always parents have to be with them at all times to deliver the pumpkins, maybe do a couple simple things. They help with baking. We used to have a baking program that kids and adults would meet at church. They bake cookies and deliver them to firehouses, police stations, and even to the local neighbors that we have living around us that are older, that cannot get out and about. We drop these items off. And like I said, it's always a parent or an adult with these kids. As you get to the older youth group, we're talking upper middle school into junior high school. If you have a youth group, we work directly with the youth group leader. And he will work with me. Like, for instance, I worked with him and I said, what do you want to do this year? Do you want to have one big youth project where you step in and help out where there are other adults there working on a project for one of the projects we pick? It's their choice. One year he says, no, we want to take on a task ourselves. What can we do? And I point him in that direction and I go back and forth helping him put it together, work with the organization. This year, he's decided, he came to me and he says, okay, we're going to do a youth group thing, but we want to get him in with other people that are volunteering. And that is one of the steps that Pastor Jeff's saying. The bigger the volunteer group, the more communication bigger conversations between everybody, as well as who you're going for. So it's all ages and you have to piece it together. I can tell you, first year was tough. Mistakes are made. You miss it, you fix it for the next time. And the first time, I think I told you about this, the first time we did it, we forgot about people that go to our church that are in wheelchairs. They can't get around. There are other things they can't do. And the day of the event, people were showing up, these people with family members helping them, going, I don't know what to do. And we went, we didn't plan anything for them to accommodate them. So we worked to kind of get them somewhat involved, but that was our first time we made a mistake. We fixed it. So for the rest of the 9 years, we accommodated everybody. They may just sit in the room and carry on a conversation with people that are volunteering because they don't have the capabilities of doing much of anything with their hands, but they're there. They are there. We have people that help a little bit with our canned food drive. And maybe they have the fear, they wouldn't mind delivering it, but we go down into the city, North City, they have fears, every ride to those fears. So we might take them as a ride along to go with us so they can physically see where this food is going. So we open our doors to say, okay, you want to go, I'll take you. Do you have comfortable going with me? I know where I'm going. You can go down, you don't have to unload anything, but you can see where this is going to. People need to see what we're doing and what it's going towards. So
No, that's really good. I think involving in whatever level you can, it just strengthens that feeling of serving. It's just deeper. Now, do you guys have prayer groups that support the day of service and all of the different projects that are going on?
we do. So we have seminarians that come through our church that are studying, and that is their project. So we have a room set up, and in the past, it's been people can come anytime during the daytime. Maybe that's all they want to do. We have a prayer room set up where they can come, talk. There are lists of projects that are going on. They can pick one up and they can pray that this is a good, successful day and they're safe and they're able to share God's word. So yes, we do. This year, we have 7 seminarians that are going to play a tag team. They go in and out. They're responsible for setting up the room. They're responsible for welcoming people in and saying prayer, help them say prayers. So yes, we do. We do every year.
So that also brings up a really great question. When people sign up to serve, is it an all-day commitment? Is it a couple of hours? Is it half a day? How does that work?
Okay, it's a threefold. So usually it's a 4-hour day. We start in the morning, we end by lunch. If there are projects, building a fence, just the laborious jobs, sometimes they go about 6 hours. But it gives them an opportunity to say, hey, we're not done, but we sure would like to come back and spend more time with you. And that team leader that runs that mission project, will talk to his group and say, okay, we're not done. We have more to do. Would you be willing to come back? We can work together to pick a day, and I'll work with the organization to see if that'll work for them, and we'll come back. So there's so many opportunities there. It's the 4-hour day, it's the 6-hour done, and then possibly 6-hour or even 4-hour. And can we come back and do more? So it's our commitment, and I think it shows our commitment to them when we say, we're not just saying, okay, we're done. It's not really done, but we're done. No, right. We're not done, and we really want to get this finished and spend more time with you.
That's beautiful. Because as everybody knows who gets into any kind of project, you think it's going to take an hour. It could take 3, it could take 12. There's all kinds of details that start to unfold. So yeah, I love the fact that it is a day of service, but it can extend if need be. That's great.
And it has happened. It has happened.
It has. And on average, how large would each serving team or opportunity project team be? Is it like 6, 8, 10? How large?
it has to be based on, how do I say this? Based on how big is your church? How many projects are you taking on? So the bigger the church, we get up to an average about 15 people per
Okay.
project. And it also depends on if you do any, let's say at your church, how much space do you have for how many people? So it accommodates. This year, Pastor Jeff kind of tested our skills, and he says, less projects, bigger groups, which is so hard. We're not used to that. So we got some projects, we're trying to get 50 people. And we used to go 15 people to 20. Now he wants 50. The objective is more people together, more conversation, because you're also inviting people that maybe aren't a member of your church, but a possibility. It's a seed plant. As Pastor, you're planting a seed. And not only are you doing that at the organization, but hopefully somebody you've invited to come that doesn't have a church home. So his objective, and we worked with a lot of our partnerships, but to get fewer projects. So we went from 35 is the average down to this year 12, but they're big groups.
Wow. Yeah. So, and I can see the advantage in that. I mean, especially for a larger congregation, you're not going to always be in service with the same people, with everybody. People tend to pick one time or one day that they go, and then that's it. So this is an opportunity for the entire congregation. And you guys actually even have 2 campuses. So everybody to get to know each other, get to serve, and get to learn something new. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was quite a challenge, but I really think it's a great idea. So I'm happy that you were able to rise to it.
When we get concerned, or I don't think this is going to work, we always take a deep breath and step back and say, you know what? We're putting God at the driver's seat. We're fine. We'll be fine. Everything will work out. And you know what? It's worked out in the 10 years that we've done this. And this year's example was, we're celebrating our 75 years. Christ Memorial is. That was going at the same time we're trying to get people energized for Loved Sent. And we all started getting really worried. Our last meeting committee going, we just don't have very many people signed up. I don't know what we're going to do. We took a deep breath, said our prayers, and say, okay, we forgot. We got back in the driver's seat. It'll work out. 3 days later, and there are people registering like crazy. God works in mysterious
God is good.
He is. No, God is good.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, in point number 2, I think that you were making was really around funding. And I want to make sure that I caught all 3. I heard 3 things. I heard that sometimes there are tools or something that you would need that the people on the project already have and can bring from their personal supply. So that's how sometimes that happens. And sometimes there's extra craft supplies and things that people are actually looking for a way to get put into use, get out of their home and put into use. So that works. I also heard you saying going to local businesses such as Home Depot, Lowe's, any other hardware stores, any other fabric stores, things like that, can sometimes solicit donations. And then community sources. So you mentioned Thrivent and that special program that they have that twice a year you can, as a member, get $250 towards service projects, which is amazing. But there are probably other community sources that, depending upon where you live, would be available for use in helping the community either be spruced up or made more safe or whatever the project entails. Was there anything else that I missed in terms of funding?
No, and usually the primary sources of getting what we need is Thrivent first and foremost, and then supplies like through Home Depot and Lowe's. If there is a grant, the grant is being requested by the organization that we're going to help. So sometimes you go to them and say, okay, what do you want done? Well, we want to dig up the driveway and put down more concrete, but don't worry, we have the grant money for it. We don't have the people. So it's like a twofold. One of the organizations, CFNA, they get grants, some grants, and every once in a while they throw it out there going, this is what we need done. We got the money, but we need help. And that's what we're going to do. We'll bring our tools. They'll take care of the grant money. They'll request and buy what they need, and they'll have it there waiting for us when we get there. And then, like I said, the collections at church, you just have to make sure once you set your date or your month, because I think I've told you we've gone from 1 day a month to a month where people have more time to get involved. And now we're back to 1 day a month. What it'll be, we're bouncing back and forth, and there's reason behind that. We can get into that at the end of this conversation. That is about the only way we get what we need. Reaching out to, I'll give you an example, Lowe's or Home Depot's. I reach out to them because we do flood buckets. We put together flood buckets to accommodate and help people that have been flooded out. And it's in our local community. 1 year we sat on flood buckets we put together at our church, and we're out of space. So my husband and I went down to Lake Charles in Louisiana. We hauled 150 buckets down to them because they just went through such a rough ordeal. And we found out through other organizations we have volunteered to help out outside of Love Sent, the Love Sent project. So I reached out to him and said, what do you have? So Lowe's gave us the buckets. That's a big thing to collect what goes in the buckets, rubber gloves, sponges, things like that. We can easily collect them or hand out a flood bucket. Somebody slides it out and they said, we need you to fill it with this and then bring it back. And then we store it at our church. We have a site for it. So Lowe's and Home Depots have both taken time to donate buckets with the lids. And so, I've got the information for it if anybody chooses to do it. It's needed in our local area. It really is. And I have the contact information. Once we create them and we store them, I reach out to somebody who says, okay, our church, this is the name, and I'm the contact person. We have this many buckets, flood buckets put together for you. When it comes time and you're in need, please let us know. And we took them down. North City had some flooding, and we took our buckets down there. They had a site. They opened up an old church, and that's where they were collecting flood buckets for. So primary, it's more that. You had mentioned at one point, any other money, grants, that comes from the organizations. We don't have an account at Love Sent for Love Sent. This is where we reach to our community church to say, help us out. Do you have a contact? What can we do? We need your help. And when you do that to church members, they feel wanted. They feel as if they can make a difference, especially the older age group where they just can't leave their home. It's difficult for them, but they miss being able to help out. We keep an eye on that. We really do.
Yeah, no, that makes great sense. And it also makes sense that if you're partnering with an organization to provide the labor, that they would already have the capital. So, that's another great way, well, it's a great way that your church doesn't expend money necessarily, but uses time and talent, and being generous in the community. So great examples. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, so I stopped you before you went to number 3, and I think that you might have been about to talk about just the snowball effect of organizations knowing that, finding out through the grapevine or people that you have worked with, that your church is in the service business. So give us a sense of how that has unfolded for you at Christ Memorial.
Okay. About 3 years ago, I sat back and started thinking about this whole love sent that, and Pastor Jeff has said so many times in so many of his sermons that we're not just loved and sent for one day out of the year. We need to look at focusing that we are sent 365 days a year. And we don't have to, as a Love Sent committee, we don't have to sit down and plan this. It's easy for somebody to take the task on. So I reached out to community groups and any type of organizations within our own church. We got a men's club, we got a women's club, we've got community groups, our Bible study groups, you've got the youth, there's so many groups here to say, hey, when you do projects, invite new people from our church to do it, and do it whenever. We don't have to do it one day out of the year. Their feedback to me was, but we don't know what else to do. This is what we've always done. So I started asking all these people, do me a favor, send me a list of the organizations you've worked with. If you've got a contact name, whatever you want to do, give me a list. This is how I created Love Sent Now. Because we're sent now, today, tomorrow. We're always sent out. But people don't have a sense of direction, that have never been involved, or they've always done their volunteer work for a specific organization and nothing outside that. We want them to spread their wings, open their eyes to other opportunities, and invite new people in. So what I've done with Love Sent Now is in our website, and I think I told you about this, I have created a link within our website saying, okay, Love Sent Now. Love Sent Now means going anytime you want to, grabbing a friend, whether they're a member or not, or maybe it's a Bible study group, and say, I went through the list that's online. This seems interesting. I've never done it before. What do you guys think about doing this? If everybody agrees, that person reaches out. We now have a leader that reaches out and they take care of it themselves. We want them to know that they can do it. If they just put God in the driver's seat for themselves for their project, they'll do fine. But yet at the same time, they have me and the rest of our community say, okay, we're stuck. I don't know how I go about recruiting, and if we want to go bigger, and how do I apply for action team dollars? We have somebody in a group that is a member of Thrivent Financial. How do I go about doing it? That's what our role has started becoming, is helping them do it for themselves. And that's the kind of the next step, to showing people, okay, we've done it. See, it's great. It's a great opportunity. We've done it for months with, we've done it for one day. Go. Be loved and sent, and take it on yourself. That is scary. But I think it's scary for a lot of people. You have people that aren't like me, who has no problems just jumping out there. But that's what I'm here for, is giving them guidance and assuring me, hey, it's okay. You can do this. I'll help you. And that's what I'm doing. I got Pastor Paul. I said, we have these pathways class. These are people that are just beginning to be new members, and they take a class. Let's ask people that are already in our church group to provide, you're volunteering, provide a meal for these guys, get to know them. So when their last class is over with and their first day actually going to church, they know people. And then that leads into me having conversations with them as I run into them at church, saying, hey, did you hear this opportunity's come up to volunteer, and we're doing this and this and this? Are you interested? Oh, yeah. Okay. Let me hook you up and I'll walk you through who you reach out to. That's our seed for within our church. So there's seeds going to our community that aren't part of a church. There's organizations. There's also people that have come into our church that when you hear Love Sent Serve event for the first time, it's a fear. It's confusing for them. So during these pathways, dinners and everything, we talk about it. And, I always lend out a helping hand when I see them in church. Do you want to do it? Well, this is what I've got. I've got my kids. And I said, okay, that's okay. Let's take a look and see what they have. Or I'm going to be out of town the day of. And I said, can you bring some canned goods leading up to before you leave town? You're helping somebody by doing that. So you may not be there the day of the event, but me, I know you've contributed and you're making a difference. We get letters from organizations and we put it up on a board. People can come by, and if you donated food, you'll get a thank you note for all the food donated through Love Sent Serve event we did this year. And they'll go, oh, that's great. It went to this organization, this organization, this organization. You may have been there the day of, but you know what you did and made a difference. So Love Saint now we branch out and we kind of walk people down the path of knowing how to go out in the community yourself. Just having a conversation, you find out so many things about people.
Isn't that the truth?
It is. It is. I love talking to people when I go out shopping and just listening to them. It's amazing what you find out. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think especially in after the past few years, there are a lot of people that felt very isolated for quite a long time and are probably more open to meeting new people today than have been for a very long time. So, I love that you're encouraging people just to take that very simple step as well. So to recap what I heard, the Loved and Sent Committee still puts together a whole list of projects for Loved and Sent Day. But because sending and serving is a 365-day a year goal for all of us, then you created Loved and Sent Now, which is, if I understood you correctly, is like a clearinghouse for everything that anybody that you've worked with in the past or anybody that has heard that your church is full of servant hearts. They can contact you, you put it up, and it becomes kind of like a bulletin board for anybody at any time who wants to reach out and take that opportunity to serve within the community. They don't have to go find the project. There's a whole clearinghouse of options for them. Is that correct?
That is very correct. That is. We have quite a big list, and once a year I go through the list and I'll get out to the links and just make sure, is this organization still going? Has it changed in any way? So that if people reach out to me, because through this link, there's an email address. That's basically Love Sent Serve event email address. Mm-hmm. And in this website, this link, it says, okay, here they are. Do you know where to start? If you don't, send an email to this email address. And then I reach out to them saying, okay, what are you interested in? What do you want to do? And then I help guide them.
I think that probably most of you by now saw what I saw when I first sat down with Christie, is that her enthusiasm is infectious. I can't imagine anybody that comes into contact with her that doesn't get excited about at least looking at that list and considering that possibility. You really, you are quite an asset to Christ Memorial, and you are truly the definition of a super volunteer.
Thank you very much. We have a team of people, and I look back now at Christ Memorial and with all these 10 years of doing this, we have a lot of super volunteers that they don't stop. It's infectious, but you have to keep spreading it. There's so much fun in volunteering, and I keep telling people that. Don't go into it because you're going to volunteer. Go in because you're going to have fun with whatever you choose to do, and you're going to meet great people. It's a lot of fun. I mean, a great example, we worked for an organization the first year that we did this, and part of it was helping clean up a house. And we got halfway through, and it was not an easy job. And all of a sudden, we're having a song and dance with brooms and dustpans just for that brief moment, all of us. And it just kind of settles you. It's fun. And then you get back to work and get it done. You just have fun with it. And when you have fun with it, the people that you bring in that's maybe not part of your church that you've invited, they're going to go, wow, this is amazing. Really amazing. God does great works. Planted a great seed, and I want to come back and do this. And we've had many returns, and we've had quite a few people join too. So many opportunities, whatever you're looking for.
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much. That I love the personal stories and the way that you describe them. I can actually just picture myself there with a broom and, you know, doing my best to dance with it.
It wasn't a pretty sight for us either, but I mean, you're just having fun. Taking that
Absolutely.
that breath of air when things are getting a little frustrating, because it can be hard work, but it's for a good cause. Good cause.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, and I love how over time it has transformed your culture. You described the whole process the first year as like a little bit scary because nobody had ever done it before, and they're signing up. And then I think it gained a lot of momentum, and people had favorite projects, and they wanted to line up and be the first to turn it in so that they could have their project. You know, I love how that infectious joy just started to build and build and build. And as we were sitting down and talking about doing this interview together, this conversation for the community, you said something that I just really thought was a true testament to how much the culture at your church has changed over these past 10 years. That you see something in every day as an opportunity for service, and that the people of your church see something, and it can be the simplest of things. Opening a door for someone, striking up a conversation, as you said, with someone that you don't know, but just really hearing their life story and pouring your time into their life, providing that listening ear for somebody maybe who doesn't have very many friends or anybody at the time that can really be a listening ear for them. Each of those things, though very small, they just provide a shift in that thinking of what we're about every day as we leave our homes and we go out into the community and we engage, that we're truly on mission every single step of the way. And when you said that, it just really struck a chord for me, that anybody can open up a door, anybody can be courteous, anybody can just strike up any kind of even moderate conversation. And if people want to talk, they will. And if they don't, that's okay. But you gave them that opportunity.
Keep in mind something I learned, you know, it's learning for us, even though we've been doing this for 10 years, that I also keep in my mind, kids are our future. They are our future. And when you involve them, even in the simplest of conversations with somebody we don't know, they're seeing it, they're observing it, and they just might do it. And I'm going to tell you this story. My granddaughter is 2.5, going on 3 years old. And she and I go walking in a park. And in that park, there's a lot of elderly that are just trying to get out and get from one bench to another, but they're doing it. And I carry on conversations when I'm out walking myself, but with my granddaughter, she the other day learned she's been paying attention because we walked an older couple with their walking canes. They're just gotten up from one bench, and I observed them. They're getting to another one, and they sat down. And my granddaughter walked up to them and said, "Good morning. How are you today?" It's the simplest things like that. It shocked me that she's actually been paying attention, and it's that's why it's important to feed it down as well as up. Get it down to our younger kids. It's important for them to do that, because that simple act can do so much for somebody that's just really struggling. I take her to her great grandma's nursing home, and this one, she walked up with a gown. She goes, "Hello, how are you?" And the little gal just started crying. She looked down and she goes, "She just made my week by taking the time and saying hello." So whatever you do, the simplest acts, make sure that younger group sees it too, that younger age group, because they're seeing it in you, they're seeing the reaction, and all of a sudden they're finding out, I can do it too. This is so simple. Holding a door and just saying hi to somebody, that's just simplest thing you can do. And if you really do that, your heart just expands. That's how I feel every time we do the Big Love Center. At the end of the day, my heart is so big. It's just amazing how we pull everybody together to get it done.
Gosh, yes, absolutely. And thank you for that reminder that kids, they're always watching, and they are capable of doing so much more sometimes than we think they might be. Yeah, so passing it along to the younger generation is critically important.
It is. It is.
Well, Christie, thank you so much for spending the time with us today, and just really providing some guidance on the core ways that you kind of strategize around approaching this day of service, and giving some really good details in how to dig into that just a bit. Just really appreciate your heart for serving, and your heart for sharing everything that you've learned and that you now love about Loved and Sent and the Day of Service.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed my conversation with everybody, and I hope people can use this information and be loved and sent from wherever they are.